Welcome to the Book Flood Podcast. I am your host, Tom Nixon. My guest this week is Sara Smith. Sara is a district librarian in California's Central Valley. Previously, she was a high school teacher librarian and English teacher. She has reviewed over 1,000 manga and graphic novels for Booklist and School Library Journal. She runs the Graphic Library website where she supports libraries with collection development. Sara has appeared as a podcast guest on School Librarians United and The Literacy Advocate. In addition, she is a frequent speaker at national and international library conferences. Recently, Sara became the co-author of Manga Goes to School, Cultivating Engagement and Inclusion in K-12 Settings. Welcome, Sara.
Thanks so much, Tom. Glad to be here.
Oh, I am so glad to have you here. So let's start a little bit. You're here, you're going to be talking about manga, about graphic novels.
Yep.
Let's start with talking a little bit about your career trajectory.
Yeah, so like you said, I started off as an English teacher kind of accidentally. I got a BA in English, and I think it happens to a lot of English majors. You're just kind of, what do you do with that? And it's the Avenue Q song, what do you do with a BA in English? And so I became an English teacher, and about 6 years in, I felt a little bit lost, and like there was something else that I was meant to be doing. So the teacher librarian retired, and I kind of like, wait, how do I get that job? Being in the books all day and talking to all the students about books, like let's do that. And so I figured out how to get that position. And I did that for 9 years, and then my district librarian retired, and there was no one else really to take that position. So I kind of fell into that job. So my trajectory is really kind of stumbling into other positions. So here I am.
Your story is so unique to you, and yet so similar to everybody who's sort of gone down this path. There are so few librarian jobs that you don't quite want to leap until there's actually a place to leap to.
Yep.
Yeah, BA in linguistics. That's how you sort of get where I got. Same kind of thing. Can you tell us the difference between graphic novels and manga?
So manga is the Japanese word for comics. Anything that has a comic feel to it in Japan is manga, like Spider-Man comics is manga. So it could be anything like that. A graphic novel in America is somewhat like a complete story that is bound together in like book form. So that's what we kind of consider a graphic novel, is not necessarily like magazine or chapters that come out like a comic book. A lot of people think of like the floppies where it's like an individual chapter, and it comes out like weekly or monthly. And then a graphic novel, you put them all together and you get like a complete story. And then with manga, it kind of has become this umbrella term encompassing books that come from Japan or other Asia countries, but it's ballooned to other countries now. There's manga style books that are coming out from like France. There's manga style books that come out from Korea, so it's a illustration style, or it's a storytelling style that has spanned the globe now, and I think gone farther than just Japan.
Good description. You thought about this a bit.
A little bit. There's a chapter in the book about it.
Oh, excellent. Was there a catalyst for your interest in graphic novels?
It would have to be my friend handing me Sailor Moon. There was, I think, an entire generation of people around my age where Sailor Moon was our gateway drug. That came over around in the 90s, 80s, 90s, where that was one of the first imports. Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon was about the same time. So depending on where you were or who you were, that was your entry point.
Mm.
And my friend gave me Sailor Moon, and that was my first one, and I was hooked. I was just, what is this comic? Like, what is happening here? And I I don't know. I needed more of it, and we went to my mom took me to Borders and found this whole section of just comics that were very similar in style and storytelling, and I couldn't get enough of it.
Nice. What are the benefits of graphic novels for students?
I'm really glad you asked this question because not only that there are standards that we're supposed to be teaching that require students to be um, versed in knowing how to decode and interpret visual literacy. It's a big thing for teacher librarians, right? That we're supposed to be teaching literacy skills and visual literacy. But
Mm-hmm.
it's something that is important, I think, for a lot of teachers that gets brushed to the side. This idea that like comics and manga especially it is lesser. So those books are somehow like dessert reading, or they're not academic, right?
Mm.
But students still get skills. Have there's still something of value from these books, right? The storytelling there is still rich. It can still be really valuable. And just because kids tear through them and are excited about it doesn't mean that they're not a valuable source of reading material. For the main thing that I think kids get out of it is that it is a type of biliteracy. So students are decoding the visuals in the text, and they're reading the text, and they're having to put the two together. So some people think that when you read a graphic novel, you're not using your imagination because the pictures are already there. But you're having to engage a different type of imagination. I think like you're having the pictures there, but you're also um, the there's things in between the panels that are still happening. There's time still elapsing in between the panels. So your imagination is still working, and you're still having to put the story, the words with the pictures. So that doesn't mean your brain is off just because there's pictures there. And the students are still having to grapple with the picture and the words and put meaning together and figure out what the author is going for. And it's a different type of reading than just having the words there. So students are getting a lot of skills out of that.
Back in the day when I had my own library, there was still a lot of pushback against uh, graphic novels from some teachers. I remember being in a meeting with English teachers. They probably would have described themselves as literature teachers, if you get a sense of that a little bit. Uh, but also admin, other librarians sometimes. Do you still see that pushback from adults?
I haven't seen it as much personally, but I think it's possibly because I'm so outspoken, or I think I've won people over by now. I think they know not to push back for me personally, but I've definitely heard it from other people. They've asked those questions of me, like, how do I get people on board? And when I present, it's definitely one of the frequently asked questions. You know, how do I get teachers to get kids to check out these books, or how do I get teachers to let students have this part of the required reading? Um, for like for now, one of the most common questions was, how do I get teachers to put this as part of their canon? So we're
Mm,
having, we're having discussions where we're updating our required reading lists, which is fabulous, but we're not including graphic novels. We're
right.
maybe including more updated books, which is cool, but when someone suggests a graphic novel, there's still this, oh no, that's not real reading.
In my experience, a little bit, maybe it's the same as yours, is often the person who says, "Oh no, that's not real reading," has never read a graphic novel, or
Yeah, that.
has never read a graphic novel. Some graphic novels, I get it. I understand why that's not going to be part of our canon
Mm-hmm.
completely. Some are meant for entertainment only, like any book. We have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of books that wouldn't meet that, but there are definitely some that absolutely.
Yeah.
could meet that need.
Yes, there are definitely some very beautiful, meaningful, impactful graphic novels. And when you introduce symbolism and color theory, I mean, when you get some of the ones, I mean, black and white graphic novels can also be very powerful, but there are some people doing fantastic things with color that you're just getting so much meaning and depth out of it that sure you can get some descriptions like obviously Great Gatsby comes to mind with having color theory in a prose text, right? But
Hmm.
then you get that in a graphic novel and they're actually using the color and you can see it, like, oh, it's so meaningful.
Oh, exactly. So you recently co-authored a book about graphic novels, about manga in particular. How did that come about?
So my co-authors and I started off mostly as Twitter friends, RIP Twitter. And we found each other online, and then noticed as we were going to different conferences, we're presenting about fairly similar topics. Then we did a session together, and it kind of became a natural progression. So Julie Stivers is from North Carolina. She had done a book with AASL, and so she had already written one, and we did this presentation, and she's like, we should probably write a book. We have a lot to say, and a lot of people can't get to these conferences all the time. We're kind of answering the same questions at these conferences over and over again. I feel like we should write a book so you can get it out to the masses. And we were just like, why not? Why wouldn't we write the book? And so we took our presentations and submitted the outline to her editor that she had already worked with, and they loved it.
Mm.
So yeah, from there it just kind of snowballed into this multi-chapter. We had lesson plans in there, which AASL ate up because they're all about school librarians. So it was kind of a fun journey, just putting it out on paper, like, and seeing how much you actually know. Because I don't know,
Right,
sometimes you get imposter syndrome where you're like, no, I don't actually know that much, and then when you start writing it down, you just realize how much you actually have to say about something.
right. Uh, so you mentioned meeting on Twitter. I'm going to slide a question in here. Um, if someone wants to follow what you say about manga, about graphic novels, where would they find you now?
So I'm mostly on Blue Sky. I post a little bit on Instagram, but you can't post links. So I post
Right.
my graphics to show what books I'm reviewing, but then you have to go find my website for yourself. So mostly I'm on Blue Sky, where I post the graphic and then I post the link. Like, here's the review, it's all pretty, and then here's the link to the review. So it's mostly Blue Sky now.
Same. I have found that one, people beat up on you much less on Blue Sky. Twitter has become, I don't know what it's become. I used to really like it, and it's just become something that's not terribly recognizable.
Yeah.
Uh, but I have your same problem with Insta as well. Is it has its limitations,
Yep.
and I'm not real happy with those meta folks these days either. So there's that. What advice do you have for teacher librarians in using graphic novels and manga?
So what advice do I have? I would say keep going. At this point,
Hmm.
it kind of feels a little daunting. And there's a lot of people that are kind of coming at us, or you have the same questions over and over again, people that are having the same argument, possibly. It sometimes feels like Groundhog Day, that you're just living the same thing over and over again. You're constantly having the same battle of, are these real books, or is this, it's just dessert? Um, Teachers constantly questioning whether this is good or bad for their students. But I feel like we're almost there. I feel like it's starting to become something like we're almost there to, like, we're gonna win this battle. Like just hold out faith. And the kids, they're growing up like the comic fans are adults now, right? The comic fans that grew up with graphic novels were starting to get jobs as teachers. So you're seeing more and more that people are coming into education. You have a little bit less of a fight to, prove that comics and graphic novels are worthwhile. And the kids that started reading comics at an early age, they're in high school, so they're going to keep going, and we'll have, fewer naysayers that maybe think that it's just junk. I don't know.
Right.
That's I don't know. I know that we're tired and we constantly are fighting everything in our jobs. We have to advocate for ourselves every single day. Everything's a battle, but keep going.
Oh, definitely. I think people don't always realize how long graphic novels have been around. I read them when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they were definitely available, but it was so very different. Most common was, here's the regular Tom Sawyer book, and here's Tom Sawyer in the graphic novel version, and it
Yep.
was almost completely that. Uh, which I thought was pretty great myself. But I also read a lot of comic books and that kind of thing as well, so it kind of meshed all together.
Yeah. The
You have
the
a
other
great.
piece
Oh, go
of
ahead.
advice I have, and one more. The other piece of advice I would have is there. I mean, there are a lot of people that say that they don't get it, or they've never read one. It doesn't take that long to sit down and read a graphic novel. Like,
Right.
please try one. Try something for yourself. Like your kids. I mean, everyone has at least one in their library, I hope. But like, just sit down and figure it out. Like read something. And I don't think we're at a point in the state of our world anymore where you can just dismiss graphic novels and say, I'm not going to read them. I'm not going to figure this out. I'm not going to have this be something that I engage with my students or my readers. Um, just try, just try one. Because I don't really like romance books, but I'm going to try one, and engage with my
Right.
readers, as a good librarian.
Oh, absolutely. The books that I read, and even read now, wanting to keep up with the profession, some are very much in my wheelhouse, and some are much less so. But that doesn't mean that I don't at least experience some of that genre. Uh, I like science fiction quite a lot. Fantasy really depends on what it is, but at least you want to be able to understand what's going on there.
Yep.
So you have an amazing website called graphiclibrary.org.
Yep.
Uh, who benefits from that? Who comes to your website? What do they use that for?
Well, according to my Google Analytics, because I try and big brother people. So I'm not quite sure like exactly who's coming to it, but I have had people that reach out to me. I've actually had, a lot of school librarians. I've had a few public librarians, and then I've actually had a couple students reach out to me and ask
Hmm.
for review requests. So that was really, really fun to connect to them. But I started it mostly to help school librarians because a lot of us have collection development policies where you have to have a professional review or two.
Right.
And, at the time, book list and school library journal, we didn't have anybody that was reading manga and professionally reviewing it. So somebody had to do it. And it usually has to be a teacher librarian that is reading it and giving
Sure.
their professional opinion on things. So um that's where I was coming from. Like I was already reading it, I was already devouring manga, so I might as well give back to the community and do something that was going to benefit and help people know what they were putting in their collections, because I mean, still to this day, manga has a bad rap that people just assume that it's full of nudity. There's just tons of violence. And so they can't put it in their collections because it's going to be inappropriate for their students. And so my main goal was to prove that there's plenty of stories out there for plenty of, age categories that you can have that doesn't have any of that. So, I've had a lot of folks still kind of come up to me at conferences and have that misconception. And I'm like, okay, here's some review. Like, you need to read my reviews.
Well, and the one thing that I found about manga is when I was still buying some for students is it's one of the few areas where you really, really do want to pay attention to what level it says it is. If it says it's adult,
It is adult.
it really is.
Yeah.
And so you should believe. I had a couple books come in that I went, oh, so maybe we won't put those out for students.
Yep.
And it truly wasn't all that big a deal, really, except there are these people called parents who might find it objectionable. But yes, you are completely right that there is that perception out there, and really very, very untrue. I don't think in a regular manga meant for students, I don't think you see anything you shouldn't see. So I know because we are connected on Goodreads, and that's all you out there in podcast land. You can go find us. We're connected on Goodreads. That you read an amazing number of graphic novels every year, an astounding number every year. I don't know how you do that, but you do. Why is it important for you to do that?
So I don't think any librarian has enough time to read all of the books in their collection, even though that's what some folks out there think that we should be doing. So I think, though, if we pool our resources together, there is a teacher librarian or school librarian that has read any book that's in the collection. So if we all come together, and have somebody that's like, if I'm the manga person, here's my review site, and you're the sci-fi person, and there's your review site, and then we find the other person that's a romance site. Like, can we all just come together and trade? Like, I don't have to read all the books, but somebody who is a trained professional read that book. Right. So that was kind of my hope and my goal, that we can collect enough, we can get enough voices of librarians that something has been reviewed by at least one person out there that's a trained professional. So that keeps me going, but I also like reading manga and graphic novels. And that keeps me going, that I'm like, that everything's being published, I got to read it. Somebody's got to read this, right? Because then if nobody reads it, if nobody tells people whether it's good or not, it's not going to get purchased. It's just, right. Librarians are going to look at it on the list of available and say, well, I don't know, I can't buy it.
Especially, I think, if you don't have to convince me to read it. We don't have to convince you to read it. But there are folks out there that there's no way you're able to read all of it. It just is not possible. And so you miss huge areas.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many books you read in 2024?
I do. I read 225 in 2024. And 225 in 2024. And the year before, I read 201. So it's around 200. I was trying to, keep it up, but my record year was pandemic. My sourdough bread year, because when everyone else was making bread, I was reading a book a day. I had 368.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you just need COVID to come back strong and you can read
No,
more books.
please. I don't need
Yeah,
COVID
no,
to
me
come
neither.
back.
Me neither.
No. If I just, didn't have to go into work, I was reading manga.
What book or books from your childhood still resonate with you?
I've thought about it a while. That question was really hard because I have a terrible memory. Well, that's not true. I have a really good memory, but childhood was a long time ago. The only thing I could think of was Sailor Moon. But the other one I jumped over to pretty quickly after Sailor Moon was a series called Magic Knight Rayearth, which was another magical girl story that they get giant robots and go fight the bad guy. So I'm still am, but very into powerful girls that go fight and beat up the monsters.
Oh, nice. What are you reading now?
So it's a funny question, but I don't read a manga usually for more than one day. So I read like 6 manga this weekend. Uh, but the one that I'm like kind of in the middle of is called Colette Decides to Die. It's a very morbid title, but this girl tried
Yeah, it's
to.
very uplifting there, isn't it?
Yeah. Um, the author even has a note in the first volume that she regrets the title. It started off as a short story, and then people liked it, so it continues. And then she like tried to change the title, but the editor was like, too late. But Colette is overwhelmed and decides to jump down a well because she heard that maybe there was a path to the underworld there, and thinks I can escape the mortal world and try my luck in the underworld. And it actually is true. There's a path to the underworld there, and she finds Hades, and he is suffering from a rash, but she's an apothecary, so she decides to heal him, and they have a whole little friendship, probably going to be romance, so it's
Very
very
cool.
cute. It actually is very cute despite the morbid title.
Well, there are a lot of books out there right now, not necessarily manga, but a lot of books that have titles like that. I don't know if it gets attention, probably,
Probably.
especially from middle school, high school
Mm-hmm.
students. Yeah. Well, sir, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And and for the listening audience, please like, subscribe, and share wherever you follow the podcast at. Also, we have our YouTube channel. Check it out there. And again, thanks, Sarah.
Yes, thank you.